Gary is instrumental in bringing us together to remember the terrible times, the peaceful time which we missed. I want to say a big thank you to Gary. He's a very clever person, and he knows that we should always remember the misery, the suffering we have gone through during the wartime. I have gone through a lot of difficulties. At the age of 9 or 10, I have also forgotten my mother took the whole family, including the 5 children, and boarded a steamer for Singapore because the Japanese were bombing Shanghai, where we did. And I can still remember during the meal times, my rice bowls will go jumping when the bombs drop onto the ground. And my mother says, "This will not do. I cannot let my children suffering in this place. We have to clear out." My mother's brother was the school inspector in Perak of Malaya, and he persuaded us to leave Shanghai by boat. So we boarded a boat. We were very lucky to be able to get the last few tickets and sailed from Shanghai all the way to Singapore, where my uncle waited for us. And we took a train from Singapore all the way up to Yeoh. My uncle was a school inspector in those days, and we were able to join the schools after arriving in Yeoh. And then we had to get accustomed to the life in the tropics, mixing with not only Chinese, but with the Malays, as well as the Indians, and we became very good friends. And we stayed in Yeoh until the Japanese broke into World War II. And they started attacking Malaya from the north, Thailand, and so on. So that was the second time we went through wars. And during the war, of course, the planes came overhead to drop bombs. And we had to escape into a kampong. And then you know what kampong means. Countryside, to avoid the atrocities of the Japanese. And they were very cruel. They not only killed the animals, the pigs and fowls, they even killed human beings. They occupied people, and we had to go into hiding for quite some time to avoid meeting up with them. My mother was alone looking after the 5 children, and she had to support us. Oh, that's difficult. So she started giving tuition in Chinese to the neighboring children. And at the same time, she set up a store to do small business, like selling soya sauce and soap baths. Because during the war days, he went into hiding and came to know the factory owners, and they were willing to let us take the stuff for sale. And so we set up a store outside the Yeoh Central Market. My brother and I became the chief salesman and saleswoman at the young age of 12 and 14. So we made some small profit to support the family. And my mother, she do her part. How did she do it? She started giving tuition in Mandarin to the neighboring children. And so we struggled a lot right through the war years until the Japanese surrendered after the atomic bombs were dropped in Japan. We can still remember how happy when the news came that the Japanese had surrendered. And so we went back to school. Then, after some time, my father, back in China, wrote to us to ask my mother to bring us back to China. He says, at some other land, now that everything has come back to peace, you should come back to China. And so we went back to China, my mother and the 5 children. After arriving in China, my brother and I applied to St. John's University, and we were fortunate to be accepted into St. John's University. And we were very happy mixing with youngsters of our own age. But little did we realize that fate had brought war again to China. Now, this time it's not from Japan, but it's within the Chinese themselves. The Nationalist Chinese Party, Kuomintang, and the Communist Party, Mao Zedong, these two parties were fighting very hard. And the communists, under the leadership of Mao Zedong, did better. And they were coming down all the way from Nigeria, one province after another. And so my mother says, this won't do. I cannot accept the communist regime. Let's clear out of Shanghai. So for a second time, we cleared out of Shanghai and again traveled by a steamer sailing all the way from Shanghai to Singapore, and then from Singapore back to Yeoh, where we will continue our education. And these were the wartime painful memories, and I can never forget it. To this day, I can still remember our difficult times. Anyway, God has been kind to us and saved us. After that, we went back. When the Japanese surrendered, we went back to school. After I attended Methodist girls' school. In those days, it was known as Anglo-Chinese girls' school. Anglo-Chinese girls' school. And I sat for senior in and became qualified as a training teacher. A training teacher attends a normal class. That was the beginning. So I had to move there to attend the training class and eventually became a normal trained school teacher. Well, this was what war has done to us, and we can never ever forget the terrible time we suffered. And during the Japanese occupation days in Malaya, it was for 3 years, 8 months. The Japanese were very, very cruel to the people. And when they captured thieves, not robbers, but just ordinary thieves, they would chop off their heads, put their heads on the footwalk, on display outside the central market. And I was so scared that I did not take that food. To this day, I still remember how people say the human heads were on display outside the central market. These are painful memories of wartime graves. And I'm now reliving you to tell you about the Japanese. To this day, I'm sorry, I'm still not very friendly towards the Japanese because of the cruelty they display. we had difficult time. Very difficult time. We want to give a little speech about war. And this is what I can remember about war. The cruel Japanese, the way he slaughtered people. I can never forget, even though that happened in my childhood days. Now, Gary has asked me to revise those days. Yes, I do it to help him establish a fact that war must be avoided. We must do everything to avoid war. We must establish civilization and friendliness. This time, we have a chance to meet. I revise the difficult times. Never mind, it's all right, we can revise it. Then we will always remember not to allow such things to happen again. We are here to have a nice gathering. And we want to thank